Pennsylvania is quietly becoming one of the most moved to states in all of America, thanks to its great healthcare, shockingly affordable cost of living, small town charm, and of course, its legendary cheesesteaks in Philadelphia. But talk to people who actually live here, and you might hear a very different story. And myself, who's lived here my entire life and has helped countless people relocate to the state, I can tell you that there's a side to Pennsylvania that most people don't hear about. So today I'll be breaking down what's really true, what's misunderstood, and the things people wish they knew sooner before moving here, starting with the basics, the weather. So yes, Pennsylvania is one of the few states that truly experiences all 4 seasons, but what most people don't realize is that the weather can feel completely different depending on where you live within the state. For example, York, PA can experience close to 100 inches of snow each year, while the Philadelphia area and its suburbs typically only receive around 20 inches of snow or less. Summers here are hot and humid, but nowhere near the intensity of the southern states. Fall and spring are absolutely beautiful, but don't let that fool you, because if you think that you'll only need a jacket in the winter, you'll be in for a surprise. You will definitely be breaking out the sweatshirts in the fall and even in the very beginning of spring as well. The weather in this state can definitely keep you on your toes, and I often say that Pennsylvania is one of the only states where you can experience multiple seasons all in one day. Another truth that rarely gets talked about is its location, for both good and bad reasons. Pennsylvania gives you access to almost everything. Depending on where you move within the state, you could be only around an hour to 2 hours from New York City, DC, Baltimore, the Jersey Shore, and the Pocono Mountains, and just a few hours from many major East Coast destinations. The convenience is a huge reason why people are choosing Pennsylvania, because you get the affordability and the space that Pennsylvania offers without sacrificing the major access to big cities for jobs, travel, etc. The downside is that if you need to travel to the West Coast, unlike other parts of the country, it's essentially an entire travel day just to get to places like California, Utah, Nevada, etc. because the 2 hours before your flight leaves, plus a 5-hour or so flight, plus landing, getting your bags, etc., it can very quickly turn into an entire day just to get to the West Coast. All right, so next is something that I wish more people knew about before they actually made the move to Pennsylvania, and that's that the culture here is very authentic and welcoming. Pennsylvania has a very good, grounded culture that surprises a lot of people that I help make the move here. For example, in Philadelphia, people are fiercely dedicated to their city. They are very proud of where they live. In the suburbs and in smaller rural towns, you'll find an entirely different feel, but equally strong, with tight-knit communities where people support local businesses, show up for town events, and actually know their neighbors. For the most part here in Pennsylvania, what you see is what you get, which many people really appreciate. There's no pressure to impress or pretend. Instead, it's really a place where people value quality of life and connections to others, and that authenticity really ends up being one of the state's most underrated perks. So one of the biggest surprises for those that I help make the move here, especially from states such as New York, California, New Jersey, and other high-cost areas, is just how much home you can get here in Pennsylvania for the price compared to your home state. So of course, depending on where in the state you're looking, it's very likely that you can find a great-sized home with a larger yard, more privacy, and just overall more space, and typically at a noticeably more affordable price point. Pennsylvania housing prices are steady and more often than not offer much more value than almost every real estate market on the East Coast. I recently helped a couple relocate from New York, and they were shocked to see that the home they purchased here was not only bigger than their New York home, but came with less than half the property taxes. They ended up with more house, more space, and will now end up saving thousands of dollars a year just on property taxes alone, while living in a home that they love more than their older home. So before we dive into the taxes and how much you could potentially save here, another thing that no one tells you about making the move here is how financially stable the Pennsylvania housing market really is. What I mean is the housing market grows at a predictable pace, no extreme boom or bust cycles that put homeowners at risk. Homeowners insurance is also very affordable. Property values are strong and demand remains high, especially in the more desired areas of the state as well. The economy here continues to thrive and is made up of major industries such as healthcare, tech, education, pharma, etc. Many people find that Pennsylvania is a safe state to put roots down without needing to worry if your home investment will be at risk in the future. Speaking of homeowners insurance, a major reason why we have such affordable homeowners insurance here is that we receive no natural disasters in Pennsylvania. If you're coming from just about any other part of the country, that is most likely something that you need to worry about. And it might be the biggest relief of all. There are no hurricanes tearing through neighborhoods, no tornado season to prepare for, no wildfires, wildfires, no major earthquakes, and no drought warnings. Yes, we'll get some pretty heavy rain, some pretty bad thunderstorms due to the humidity, and some snow, but nothing of significant worry like most other parts of the country have to deal with. Depending on where you move to in Pennsylvania, the PA that you move to might not be the same one I live in, and vice versa. What I mean is, the state is separated into different parts that really make the state feel like you could be living in an entirely different state. For example, if you live in one of the two main cities, Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, or along the suburbs around those areas, it's an entirely different feel than living in the mountains or the rural parts of PA. For the most part, Pennsylvania residents typically like to say that if you're not living in one of those two cities or around an hour or so radius outside of those cities, you're most likely living in the middle of nowhere. Another thing to mention that isn't often explained is the low but sometimes confusing taxes here in Pennsylvania. One of the biggest truths that no one tells out-of-state movers is that PA's tax system is both incredibly friendly and sometimes confusing until you learn. On the other hand, Pennsylvania has one of the lowest state income tax rates in the country at a flat rate of 3.07%, meaning that no matter how much you make, everyone is taxed at that same rate, and it doesn't fluctuate depending on how much you make like most other states do. Pennsylvania also doesn't tax any retirement income, so nothing on pensions, 401ks, IRAs, etc. And that alone is a huge win if you're planning to retire in Pennsylvania. But then this is where things get a little complicated. Property taxes vary dramatically from town to town. Most desirable counties tend to be higher because of the overall desirability to live there and the school districts that have a lot to do with the property taxes in each area as well. If you live in the actual city of Philadelphia, it has its own wage tax, which essentially means that there's an extra tax on income on top of the 3.07% flat rate. But truthfully, even with that wage tax on top of the state flat rate, you're still significantly below just about every other state on the East Coast. And then there's the sales tax. Pennsylvania's sales tax is 6%, but certain areas have add-ons, such as Philadelphia increases it to 8%, while the suburban counties outside of Philly stick with the base rate of 6% along with the rest of the state. If you choose the right area, Pennsylvania can save you thousands on taxes every single year, but you need to understand the taxes before deciding where to live, which I can help you with when you decide to reach out to find your perfect home. Something I can almost guarantee that no one has ever told you about living in Pennsylvania is that we have some of the highest rated suburbs in the entire country. If you look at the list of the top 10 best places to live in all of America, 30% of that list is located in the suburbs outside of Philadelphia. And that shocks a lot of people that are moving here, and definitely could be something to look further into or watch more of my videos on those specific areas. So we're not quite done yet. And while we've talked about so much, this next thing could be the most important factor and thing that you need to know before making the move here. Most people have no idea how strong of a healthcare system Pennsylvania has. The southeastern part of the state is a true healthcare powerhouse, home to some of the top medical networks in the entire country, such as Penn Medicine, Jefferson Health, Mainline Health, Doylestown Hospital, etc., with many of them consistently ranking not just the best in the state, in the country, but in the world as well. No matter your age, having reliable, world-class healthcare nearby is a major factor in choosing where to live. For families, retirees, kids, etc., this is one of Pennsylvania's most important and unknown advantages. I hope all of that information has been very helpful for you when deciding to make the move to Pennsylvania. If you could see yourself moving to the state, I would love to hear from you. You can email me using the email down below, and I'll see you over on this next video.